Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Checks and Balances TV. I'm your host, Matthew J. Reddick, and I'm committed to giving you the truth you need to financially succeed. In the spirit of Tax Freedom Day, celebrated yesterday, April the 12th, today's program is entitled Tax Freedom Day. I worked for 3 to 4 months just to pay my taxes? So let's see how today's news may impact your financial future. For most Americans, Tax Freedom Day means that from January 1st through April the 12th, American taxpayers have just now earned enough money to pay this year's tax obligations at the federal, state, and local levels. However, if the federal government were to collect enough money to pay all of its expenses, including deficit spending, Tax Freedom Day would arrive on May 23rd this year, adding an additional 41 days that each taxpayer would need to work to finance all of the government's spending budget. Tax Freedom Year has arrived for General Electric for the second year in a row. This multinational corporation reported worldwide profits of $14.2 billion last year, with $5.1 billion coming from the U.S. Yet it did not pay any corporate income taxes and claimed a tax benefit of $3.2 billion. The company says the 2008 losses experienced by its financial division, GE Capital, wiped out its tax burden in both 2009 and 2010. The CEO of GE, Jeffrey Immelt, who was the head of President Obama's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness, says that GE has complied with U.S. tax laws and welcomes efforts to revamp the tax code and close corporate loopholes going forward. Okay, so what's really going on here? Let's check the facts using our checks and balances process. Tax Freedom Day celebrates the last day that people stop working for the government and start working for themselves, which means that as of April the 12th, the average American has now earned enough money to pay for their personal annual tax obligations on the local, state, and federal levels. Tax Freedom Day arrived 3 days later than last year, meaning we're paying slightly more taxes in 2011 than we did in 2010. The slight increase from last year is attributed to incomes increasing and the resurgence of corporate tax revenue. The Tax Foundation says that Americans will pay more in taxes in 2011 than they will spend on groceries, clothing, and shelter combined. Tax Freedom Day was established by a Florida businessman in 1948 and later deeded it to the Tax Foundation, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that has monitored fiscal policy at the federal, state, and local levels since 1937. The foundation says that Tax Freedom Day answers the basic question: at what price is the nation paying for the government? To calculate the Tax Freedom Day, the nation's total tax payments collected is divided by the nation's total income. The latest Tax Freedom Day so far was May 1st, 2000, and the earliest was January 19th of 1913. General Electric, the nation's largest corporation and considered the fourth most recognized brand in the world, was able to slip right through a tax loophole last year and pay zero corporate taxes. The corporate tax rate in the United States is 35%, one of the highest in the world. Based on GE's profits, it would have paid nearly $5 billion in taxes to the IRS. However, the company says that more than $9 billion of its total profit was earned overseas. And due to federal law, taxes are only due if the company brings its overseas profits back to the United States. The other $5.1 billion earned in the U.S. was essentially a wash once the substantial losses from 2008 and 2009 were applied. And according to the New York Times, regulatory filings show that in the last 5 years, GE has accumulated $26 billion in American profits and received a net tax benefit from the IRS of $4.1 billion. Because of loopholes like this, President Obama has been considering an overhaul of the corporate tax system for more than 2 years now. He says he wants to lower the tax rate, close loopholes, end many tax subsidies for American businesses, and simplify the tax code to treat everyone fairly. He created the Council on Jobs and Competitiveness to work with businesses to fuel job growth and innovation, and to help get America back on track. And who do you think he chose as chairman of this important council? Jeffrey Immelt, the CEO of GE. Okay, so you may be asking yourself, Matt, what does all of this really mean to me? Well, now that we've checked the facts, let's balance this news using our checks and balances process to determine what action you should take today. The total tax burden per individual varies from state to state, and sometimes rather significantly. Higher income states, such as Connecticut, face higher state and local taxes as well as federal taxes. Residents of Connecticut will not see their Tax Freedom Day until May 2nd, 20 days later than the nation's average. New Jersey, which celebrates Tax Freedom Day on April 29th, and New York on April 24th, are the top 3 states with the latest Tax Freedom Days. On the other hand, Mississippi, Tennessee, and South Carolina celebrate their Tax Freedom Day the earliest, with Mississippi on March 26th, Tennessee March 27th, and South Carolina on March 29th. However, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities says the figures released by the Tax Foundation are misleading and do not represent typical households. They say, according to data from the Congressional Budget Office, the average middle-income American pays a considerably smaller share of their income in taxes than the Tax Foundation report implies. The CBO data suggests that 80% of U.S. households pay federal taxes at a lower rate than the Tax Foundation's estimated average federal tax obligation. The Tax Foundation itself acknowledges this issue in a methodology paper accompanying its report, pointing out that its estimates reflect the average tax burden for the country as a whole rather than for specific subgroups of taxpayers. So your guess is as good as mine as to when Tax Freedom Day really is. GE, the company with the ingenious tagline of "Imagination at Work," has taken the phrase to a whole new level. It seems their creative accounting practices leave many Americans uninspired, angry, and confused. When confronted with the question why GE leaves revenue overseas, a company spokesperson said, "We are committed to complying with tax rules and paying all legally obligated taxes. At the same time, however, we have a responsibility to our shareholders to legally minimize our costs." GE has reportedly spent hundreds of millions of dollars in recent years lobbying for tax laws, including getting more credits for green energy and the continuation of the tax shelters that have proved to be so beneficial to GE's bottom line. On GE's website, they posted a statement regarding their tax liabilities and clarifying misinformation they say has been recently reported in the media. In response to the statement that they received a $3.2 billion gift from the IRS, they explained that it was a tax benefit. And although it's not cash, it sure feels like cash, because a tax credit is a dollar-for-dollar future deduction against taxes they would normally owe. And when addressing the question if their visit with Charlie Rangel, who at the time led the Ways and Means Tax Writing Committee, and whose charity received a $30 million donation from GE the month after the meeting, had anything to do with the continuation of the tax shelter laws that saved GE so much money, GE spokesperson said no, and implied this was purely coincidental. Okay, so what's the bottom line here? As American taxpayers work for the first third of the year to pay their tax liabilities to the federal government, and maybe even longer, GE is working hard to avoid them. They attribute their tax breaks to the losses experienced by one of its divisions. While those losses may be true, their other divisions have been profitable. It's somewhat like saying that if your brother or sister had a lot of tax deductions, you should be able to claim them too. However, just because you have the same parents doesn't mean the IRS will let you count their deductions as your own to avoid paying your taxes. There certainly is a double standard in this country today. GE has made the most of its multinational status. They don't have to pay taxes because they made the money overseas. Yet on the IRS website, under the topic of offshore bank accounts, the first line clearly states that U.S. citizens must pay taxes on their worldwide income. And it further explains that the IRS has taken several steps to combat tax avoidance schemes. Well, they obviously haven't gone far enough. There's more than $5 billion up for grabs and waiting at GE. If the IRS did what they say they would do, Tax Freedom Day would arrive a little sooner for the rest of us. In this week's CBTV poll, we asked Americans an important question. Have you taken steps to lower your annual tax liability? The options were A, yes I have, B, no but I will next year, C was no I haven't, and D said I don't pay any taxes currently. Well, 41% of you said that you have not taken any steps to lower your annual tax liability. And while it may be easier to overpay your taxes to the IRS each year and then receive a big refund check, in the long run, the less money you give Uncle Sam each year keeps more of your hard-earned money in your pocket throughout the year. Stay tuned for my tip, tool, or technique portion of the show, where I'll discuss how you can pay less in taxes every year. In our On the Street segment, we travel the country to ask Americans what they think about an important financial topic or issue. For this week's segment, we asked people if they felt taxes were going up or down in the future. Let's take a look at what America had to say. Now, do you feel that taxes in the future are going to be going up or down?
I've never seen taxes go down in the United States.
Do you have a sense as far as income taxes, how much higher they're going to go in the future?
No.
But you do feel they will be going up in the future?
Absolutely.
Do you feel that taxes in the future are going to be going up or going down?
Up.
How much higher do you think they might be going?
Gosh, I don't know. I know our sales tax has just gone terrible. I would say at least another percent.
Yeah. And how about income taxes? How much higher do you think income taxes are going to go in the future? Any idea?
I don't have any idea, but I think they will go up.
Do you think that taxes are going to go up or down in the future?
They'll be going up. Yeah, there's just too many people that need too many things, that are living longer. We have longer lifespans. There's more needs. There's more human needs than ever. And there's lots of people coming here from all over the world. And that there's just care that has to get done. I think health insurance has to get done. So yeah, taxes will go up eventually. Yeah, there's no going down again.
Well, as you can see, not one person we interviewed thought that taxes were going down in the future. And unfortunately, I have to agree with them. And if taxes continue going up, then Tax Freedom Day will be celebrated later and later each year. Stay tuned for my tip, tool, or technique segment next. I'll discuss ways you can lower your tax liability so you're not working quite so hard for the man. And now for Matt's weekly tip, tool, or technique. Today's tip, tool, or technique is inspired by GE's creative accounting practices. If a multi-billion-dollar corporation can virtually eliminate their tax liability, why can't you? So here are the 3 keys to lowering your federal tax liability. Key number 1, reduce your countable income. To do this, you need to look at your adjusted gross income, or AGI, which is the key factor in determining your income tax rate. Your AGI can be determined by taking your gross income and subtracting all IRS-approved deductions or adjustments, as found on IRS Form 1040, lines 23 through 34. Pre-tax deductions, such as contributions to a 401k or IRA, will have the greatest impact on reducing your tax liability. Key number 2, increase your tax deductions. You may want to start with keeping detailed financial records throughout the year, so come tax time, you can easily find and apply all applicable tax deductions available to you. Remember, GE has an entire department working full-time on their accounting practices. Your records can prove to save you big money at the end of the year. The best strategy for reducing your taxable income is to itemize your deductions, and the 3 biggest deductions are normally mortgage interest, charitable contributions, and state income taxes. Key number 3, take advantage of all available tax credits. A tax credit lowers your tax bill dollar for dollar against the taxes you would normally owe the federal government. So in this respect, a tax credit is more valuable than a tax deduction, which is simply a deduction from your gross earnings. And there have been many tax credits available from the government over the years, such as the energy tax credit, the solar tax credit, the first-time home buyer credit, the child care credit, and many more. And while we can't get rid of all of our tax liabilities, we can work hard to avoid paying more than we need to. Take a moment now to plan ahead and reap the tax benefits this time next year. Now is the time to realize that neither the federal government nor big multi-billion-dollar corporations are responsible for lowering your tax liability. Only you are responsible for making sure that you only pay what you legally owe to the IRS. You worked hard for Uncle Sam for the first 102 days this year. Make sure your money works hard for you for the remaining 263 days. Make responsible fiscal decisions. Keep detailed records. And put some of your money away for the future and make the rest of the year count. Mark your calendars now for the next installment of our Truth About series. This upcoming episode will air later this month and is on the truth about bonds. You will learn the pros and cons, both sides of the coin in this important financial product, so you'll know if it's the right investment for you. And be sure to friend our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel to gain exclusive access to our library of viral videos and the lighter side of finance. For more information on how to become a checks and balances savvy consumer and to download any of our free reports, visit the download section of our website. Also, be sure to get your copy of The Truth About Taxes, a free report that teaches you how to arrange your affairs to minimize your taxes as much as legally possible. And while you're on the site, remember, your voice counts. Be sure to take this week's poll and visit our Tell Us What You Think section to share your opinion. Make your voice heard. And finally, remember that only you can control your financial future. You can succeed. You just need confidence and determination. I'm Matthew J. Reddick from Checks and Balances TV. Be sure to join us next week when we'll discuss your retirement nest egg, the many colors of diversification. Until then, dump debt, invest wisely, believe in yourself, and make it happen.